We've talked about dreams under management, goals under management, and now it's time for humans under management. More specifically, the virtual Humans Under Management Conference happening on the 8th of September with incredible speakers from around the world. I'm thrilled to be part of this event for those seeking better client outcomes, which, as a listener of the Innovating Advice Show, I know includes you, and am impressed by how affordable this event is for advisors and planners everywhere. We're talking about the cost of a dinner. These super early bird tickets have sold out, but hop on now to grab an early bird ticket at innovatingadvice.com/HUM for Humans Under Management.
The reason that the 6 stages of financial planning needs to evolve and actually is becoming less important, while ever you've got a planner and they can hang their hat and say, well, I'm a CFP, I'm a CFP, that's great, but how good is your business? Because it doesn't matter what qualifications you've got. If your business can't underpin you delivering that advice in line with those 6 stages, you have nothing. It doesn't matter how qualified you are. So the CFP and other qualifications are incredibly important, but they are nowhere near as important as the business that underpins that advice process, that planning process, and the people that deliver it.
Welcome to episode 49 of the Innovating Advice Show. I'm joined by Michelle Hoskin, founder and director at Standards International, which is the powerhouse behind professionalism and operational excellence in financial services. They set the standards, they live the standards, they are the standards. In this episode, Michelle, whom many may know as Little Miss WOWW, gives us the real story behind where that name came from. She shares why standards are so important and how they provide definition and help to shift the language we use. For example, in moving from practice management to business management, and in clarifying and defining the paraplanner role. We also touch on the vast regulatory changes in Australia and how they tragically led to an increase in financial advisors dying by suicide. And with some beautiful and important words on how to avoid that happening to others, listen till the end. Links, show notes, and timestamps at innovatingadvice.com or directly through the link below. You're listening to the Innovating Advice Show, and I'm your host, Kate Holmes, bringing you the global pulse on financial services innovation, featuring financial planners, financial advisors, and related professionals from all corners of the globe. Let's dive in. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Michelle, everyone seems to have an interesting entry point and story of how they got into this profession. So, can you share with us what yours is?
I certainly can. So I am originally from Nottingham, so Robin Hood and Maid Marian land, and obviously in the UK. And it was the date of my dad's 40th birthday. So I was actually, I was just turning 19, so quite young. And I worked in retail. So I actually worked for Paul Smith, the fashion designer.
Yeah.
And I was away with my parents for my dad's birthday weekend. And my mum turned to me, and at this point I'd recently moved to London, so I'd sort of flown the family area and the family home, and my mum said to me, you're miserable, like what on earth is the matter with you? Snap out of it, as mothers do, you get the proper sort of stern talking to.
Yes.
And she said, what's wrong? Why are you so grumpy? And I said, Mum, I hate my job. I hate what I'm doing. I've left my friends and my family to come and work in an industry that I don't enjoy, i.e. fashion. As much as I loved clothes, the whole industry was it just didn't fit my personality. I need to do something else. I'm thinking of coming back to Nottingham. And she said, right. So she kind of scrambled in her pocket and she grabbed out this screwed up piece of paper and a little pencil. And she said, right, what are you good at? And she literally, as I was talking, and it was a bit of a sort of blow smoke up my own backside moment, she said, no, keep going. And she's writing all these things down. And it was things like organisation and bossing people around and, be full of energy and all this kind of, she was writing it all down. And she looked at it and she said, well, why don't you share those skills with people who run their own business? And I'm just like, oh, what a great idea. So that night, literally this was like the Saturday night, I phoned my partner Martin at the time, who's Ruby's dad now, and I said, right, I'm leaving my job, I'm going to pack my job and I'm going to set my own company up. And he's like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, no fear. I mean, at 19 years old, you're just like, yeah, well, it's a good idea. And, you know, no children, no mortgage, we'll just go and do it. So literally on Monday, I resigned from my position where I was working, and a friend of mine phoned me that night and said, you know, how are you? What's going on? Did you have a nice weekend? I said, yeah, my God, I've left my job. I've handed my notice in. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I actually don't know. And she said, well, she said, there's 3 financial advisors within Allied Dunbar, which is a network here in the UK, and they're looking for a PA. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to be the world's worst PA. I'm never ever in a million years going to do as anybody tells me. Like, that's just not that's not in my makeup at all. I said, but, well, I'll have a chat with them. So I went for the interview. I got the job on the spot. And before I knew it, I was 6 months in, and I was supporting 3 financial advisors, high achievers, top of the shop in terms of their sales and their kind of pole position in the industry. And I've literally transformed their businesses in, you know, about 9 months. And then I just got more and more and more people interested in what I was doing. And then, you know, 5-6 years later, I find myself on stage talking about how to run a financial services business. And I can't even tell you what happened in that time, from kind of getting that job to finding myself on stage. And then I woke up on stage thinking, oh my God, there's people in my audience actually listening to what I'm saying, and I'm like 23 and I don't know what I'm doing, and you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, it just went on and on from there. The rest is history, as they say.
That's incredible. And okay, so you kept saying that story and I kept saying, wow. And you are known as Little Miss WOW. And as you were talking, I was like, yep, that makes sense. But where did that title actually come from?
So the stuff that, well, the actual, the kind of off the record story. So there's kind of 2 stories running. There's the kind of the presentation story and the professional story, but I'll give you the real story. So I approached the local college and I said, you know, do you ever need speakers to inspire, you know, your young business students, you know, who are studying business? You know, I've got a couple of businesses, you know, I'm still young, you know, I've got a family, I'm balancing it all. And this was probably about, let's say, 10 years ago. And the head of faculty said, yeah, we'd love you to come and speak to some of our students. So I did my whole, you know, I was absolutely so nervous speaking to a group of what was effectively grungy students with hoodies, and they almost looked like they literally scared me to death, these kids. And there's me trying to be all kind of sparkly and entrepreneurial and, you know, inspirational, and they're all just like on the phones and they're not listening to me. And I did my little thing. I was petrified. I did my little thing, and one of the girls in the audience, she's like, well, that's so great. She said, but, you know, what do they call you? And I looked at her and went, Michelle? And she's like, no. Like, what do they call you? Like, what's your stage name? And I was like, and then so she must have seen on my face, I was thinking, well, I'm not a pop star. Like, I don't, like, you know, I'm not famous, so I don't need a stage name. And she's like, well, Lady Gaga isn't called Lady Gaga. That's not her real name. She said, we need to get you a name. And then she said, she was only like, I don't know, she was only like 18 or so. And she said, well, what do people say when you walk off stage? And I said, well, they go, wow. And she went, well, there it is, Little Miss WOW. And that was it.
No way.
It stuck. And then I sort of turned that into we had little cartoon characters designed of me and all sorts of crazy stuff. It was the most bizarre. I mean, when I was showing my mum this stuff, she's like, who do you think you are? Like, and I'm like, well, this is business, Mum. This is business. So then we obviously looked at everything that we did as a business, and then we kind of matched the products together. So then we have like the WOW program, there's the WOW coach, there's Little Miss WOW as me doing the stage stuff. So it's just grown and grown and grown, and it's stuck. And obviously it's double W at the end, so it's just WOWW, which stands for Ways of Wow in the World. And that's really where my topics come from, in terms of if you're going to do something, do it properly and make an impact, you know, wow your audience, wow your clients. And it's just stuck. It's just stuck. Crazy.
Ways of wowing the world. I love it. And that is applicable in every area of business and life.
I know. And it actually all kind of really hit when I was, you know, looking at how I ran my business and how my life was, and actually thought, you know what, my life isn't that wow, and I need to work on the business. And then I kind of leveraged my own my own life and my business to make them wow. And then you're onto a whole new level of storytelling. So yeah, that's where it came from.
How wild. It'd be a different world if that young girl in the audience.
Absolutely.
Isn't that fascinating? Just those little things that happen in life that actually change your whole trajectory.
Well, and I think she's obviously of the age of kind of YouTubers, vloggers, Instagram, Facebook, and all that. And it was almost expected that I had a name, like JoJo, or, and I just looked at her like she was from another planet. And she's like, well, Lady Gaga's got a name. Like, she's not called Lady Gaga. And that was it.
Well, you clearly made an impression that put you on the same level as Lady Gaga. So good on you for that.
It's the crazy hair. It works every time.
Okay, so then you sort of took your love of improving businesses and created Standards International. So what is that?
So I've always had this thing. So going back to kind of the concept of wow, if you're going to do something, you've got to do it the absolute best you can be. It ultimately to demonstrate your best abilities, right? So I've always been like, one of my most favorite jobs growing up as a child, and then as a student working in the holidays, was I was a chambermaid, and I was an award-winning chambermaid in a hotel, because I would love to go into a bedroom that had absolutely been trashed. And I would love the feeling of making my way round the room and making it all sparkly and lovely, and then closing the door and looking in and knowing that it was perfect. So that's in me. That's the thing that's in me. So when I started working with firms and financial planning businesses and planners, and they were doing all this incredible work, but sadly, there was nothing really to award them, almost to give them that recognition that they'd achieved this level of best practice and excellence in running their business, operational procedures. So it was just a logical thing for me to get involved in, to say, well, there's all these amazing firms and businesses and planners that have done these amazing things. We need to stamp that. We need to have something that, proves to the world, proves to their clients that they've got it, like they've done all this stuff. So the standards was just a natural kind of leap in, really, in terms of getting something that they could display, that they could show, that demonstrated their commitment to excellence effectively.
Okay, so why standards, and why not just like the Little Miss WOWW Award of Excellence?
Because I think in my own mind, I wanted to help firms and planners build businesses that were not all about them. So for me to build a business that was all about me just sent a contradiction. It was almost hypocritical. So yeah, I honestly, I could earn way more money just going around the world talking and doing my thing, but that's not what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm really not. I want to have a business that's big enough, and a product, effectively a service that's big enough that it has scale. And there's no way I could reach that many people on my own with an executive assistant. So I suppose it comes down to the legacy piece. What do I really want to be remembered for? What impact do I want to have? And it's not just me inspiring 1,000 advisors from a stage. It's actually, making a bigger impact to the global profession. And I remember really, really, really early doors saying to myself, when I was working 7 days a week to build a business and earn money and, do everything else, I remember saying to myself that I wanted to be instrumental in positively changing the face of financial services forever. And that was my pledge. That was my impact pledge to myself, what got me out of bed in the morning. And I would never be able to do that on my own. So by having standards and coaching programs and that's how I'm going to do that. And that's why having that standard sign of approval, if you like, was the way that I was leaving a tangible piece of evidence that we'd been there, that we'd impacted that firm, and that we'd assessed them against these standards of best practice. So yes, I think it's a scale thing, and it's just the momentum that brought, rather than just being the Michelle show, which I never really wanted. As much as I'm an extrovert and I love all the jazz hands, like as the best of them, I do, and I love all the little fuss and the sparkle. But the bottom line is, I want a business that's way bigger than me. And we're so close now, so close to doing that. It's incredible, really. I've got a great team.
Oh, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it does.
When I think about standards and then I think about financial planning, the first thing that comes into my mind is thinking about the practice standards and being the 6-step financial planning process. And we're already seeing it around the world. And it's sort of this conversation that seems to be bubbling up a lot more as people are moving more into like life-centered planning and goals-based planning. A lot of conversations around saying, hey, actually, that doesn't really work anymore. And things are evolving. So when it comes to the standards and the things you work on, how easy is it to evolve with the times? And I mean, look how fast the world is changing right now, faster than ever.
Yeah, it's incredible. So there's a couple of kind of statements / questions in there. So when I won't name any names, but there are consultants across the world that talk about they are practice management experts, right? They're not really. What they are is they are incredible at helping financial planning firms shape a client journey. That's not practice management. Sales is not practice management. Team development, procedures and processes, good structures, compliance and governance, that's practice management. That's operations. So my outlook is very much I almost close my eyes and imagine the planners. I know most of them run businesses. There's very few business owners per se that are business owners and are not planners who run practices. But I don't look at them as financial planners running practices. I look at them as businesses who are business owners, right? What the industry that they're in, most of my thinking, it's irrelevant. So when I know that we're talking proper practice management and business management, I know that that's talking about recruitment and all the stuff that would happen regardless of the industry that we're in. And that's almost the benchmark. So the reason that the 6 stages of financial planning needs to evolve and actually is becoming less important. While ever you've got a planner and they can hang their hat and say, well, I'm a CFP, that's great, but how good is your business? Because it doesn't matter what qualifications you've got. If your business can't underpin you delivering that advice in line with those 6 stages, you have nothing. You have nothing. It doesn't matter how qualified you are. So the CFP and other qualifications are incredibly important, but they are nowhere near as important as the business that underpins that advice process, that planning process, and the people that deliver it. In my mind, it's really simple. It's business. Yeah. So I think that's why, practice standards and business standards, they are, when we launch them, I always say, I have consistently been, honestly, 10 years before my time. Every single year, I'm still 10 years before my time. The world is starting to catch up, but only just. And I can tell you that the firms that have had us advise them, have embraced and adopted these standards, COVID has not impacted them at all. It's just like they planned for this, they had a disaster recovery plan, they had people in the right jobs. They were like, Monday morning, we're back on. What's the problem? The others, however, not all of them, but have just been like running around like craziness because they didn't give enough attention to their business. It was all about the clients and the advice process.
So your standards have actually been forward-looking. I mean, that's pretty rare to be able to be fully resilient in this time and with everything that's happened and be fully prepared for that. That's something special. Yeah.
Yeah, and hats off to those planners who own these businesses that had the foresight to think, we know it's just not about advice. I always say there's more to financial planning and financial advice than great planning and great advice. It has to be underpinned by an amazing business that's committed to the highest level standards of excellence. Otherwise, you just don't have anything. There's no. It's like hanging all the interiors and buying sofas and kitchen equipment for your house, and actually your drawings are flawed, like your footings are wobbly. You've not had the right foundations put in. It's the same thing. Nobody in their right mind would do that. Yet planners are doing it every day in business, thinking that that's going to last them, and it's just not going to work.
So I'm thinking back to one of the podcast episodes a while ago. It was a conversation around the difference between business and practice, and the fact that we always say, hey, you're running a practice. What are your thoughts on the difference between those two words?
Yeah, never use it. Never use it. And in actual fact, we're trying to pioneer this kind of business management role. Very few, well, there's still a few, but because we've really been pushing it in the UK, very few firms, they actually call themselves firms as opposed to practices, but practice is a term that we've come up with globally. Everyone understands it, but truly, they're businesses. The reason practice has stuck and why we don't really use it, but it has stuck, and we do use it if we're talking to international clients, is because sometimes you have an entity that exists within a larger entity. So they would be classed as a practice and the entity would be the business. So sometimes it's about placing. So, but most of our clients, probably even around the world, run businesses. They're their own entity. They're almost the top of the group food chain. So therefore, they are the company, they are the business. We would use the word practice if we were talking to a client that was in a larger group, but they ran their own entity. Then it would be fine, because they don't need to have the responsibilities of the business controls, the governance and compliance, because that's held at the higher business or the higher company. But in the main, they're businesses. That's why it should be a business manager, a business assistant, not a practice manager and a practice principal. And we've got to change the language. And I think when we all start doing that, we will all know kind of, and that's why we created the standards, to give definition to what these things are and are not globally. Like the word paraplanner, we can probably talk about the paraplanner standard, but that was a classic case in point. Globally, it's used and abused, and that role is so nondescript. Until we designed the paraplanner standard, now we have a global definition of what a paraplanner is and what it isn't, and a job description in that standard, and it's been signed off globally. So now there's a benchmark for it. It's just time, and it's just education to try and or just beat it out of them, and then they'll stop. Either way. Either works. No, just either works. I'll tell you this quickly. I did an interview on this panel.
So are there key areas that you see time and again where businesses are falling short of being businesses or of their own potential?
Yeah, I think it comes down to an allocation of time. So if you think about the global profession and the global industry, there's a huge amount of focus. I mean, in Australia, they've just been absolutely sideswiped the Royal Commission. I mean, yep. And just talking sort of kind of slightly off piece, but I'll come back. But when I went to Australia last summer, or out English summer, but obviously in their autumn, and my brief was literally to stop financial planners killing themselves. So they shipped me over to Australia to get me out on stage, to motivate these guys, to show them that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, and heartbreaking.
Yeah, incredible. And the last day of the conference, it came over the announcement. The CEO announced that the regulators and the legislators had given an extra 12 months for planners and advisors to get qualified. There was full-grown men crying in the audience. Because what was sad about that is they lost so many to suicide in that time because they almost didn't hang on long enough to see if the extension. But this is / commissions and. So it's a problem. So the biggest challenges are the obsession, and I'll use the word obsession not negatively in all contexts, but this obsession with academic technical knowledge. Like it's rife, I'm so great because I've got this and this and I know that and I've got this designation and I've got this and I've got that. And it's like, so flipping what? Your clients don't really care, really. All they care about is how well they're looked after, how great the experience is, and do they trust you? And do you do what you say? Nothing to do with the qualification. So the downside of that obsession, and a lot of that is potentially imposed on them. You take the Aussies, for example. They can't go, I'm not going to bother, I'm going to focus on my business. They've literally got to down tools, focus on getting qualified, otherwise they're out of a job, and then they're no good to anybody. Yet that to get to that level is hours and hours of study, revision, exam sitting. They have to park the business. They have to just go, I know you need attention, but you're going to get 5% of my time, right? So what happens is as an industry has put these planners on this pedestal, and the ego has fueled well, I've got this designation and I know this and I know that. It's almost like they've competed for that pole position. Their businesses have just been absolutely neglected. They've been neglected, and they've been neglected for years. So it's this, am I a financial advisor being the best I'm going to be to deliver advice on a one-to-one? Or actually, if I'm smart enough and I shift my attention to build, like you asked me the question about Little Miss WOWW, I could have made great money, but actually I shifted my attention to building a great business that we could deliver one-to-many. But planners don't do that. They don't think like that. So their businesses are the poor relation every time, until disaster strikes, and then they go, oh, God damn, I think I need to do something different here. So that's the thing. They assume that everyone's like them, so a failing for sure is their lack of leadership skills and people management skills. In order to be a success, they have to build a team. They don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to lead a team. They think that everyone's like them, and they turn into a control freak about 11:30 most mornings. Like, no one could do this as good as me. And, they turn into these neurotic psychopaths who lose it over the fact that a paperclip's in the wrong place on the bit of paper. Well, that's also a bad thing, which, they just don't get the whole people growth. They hire people that are like them, so they don't hire people for skills that are needed in the business. I mean, God, honestly, I could go on and on and on. I mean, there's hundreds of issues, but it basically comes down to, almost an obsession of themselves, which builds an incredible ego, and then a business that's then the poor relation, and then all sorts of trouble starts to happen then, and just a lack of just understanding of people and development and growth, and just the fact that they're not the center of the universe, which is contradictory to a global. I've just been talking to Stuart there about, putting, conferences and, going on conventions. Well, for decades, we've put the masters of the universe on a pedestal and sent them on a cruise.
Yep.
Because they've been so amazing. Well, what about the paraplanner and the administrator that's actually got them on that cruise? Because it's all out of sorts. So this is why it's got to be a generational flush out. And I've said to my team so many times, in truth, we probably will never see the fruits of our labour. The impact that we make as a business today, we'll never see the true benefit of it. We never will, really. So, I've got a team of very, very motivated people, knowing that we're going for delayed gratification for future gain. And what an incredible team that gets out of bed to do that every day, me included. It's cost me relationships and free time and my health and all of it, because I believe in something that's bigger than what I'm trying to do every day, something that's future proofing.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. And just since it was such a big thing that you mentioned, and for those that aren't familiar, can you share a little bit about why so many advisors in Australia became victims of suicide?
Yeah, they basically, the Royal Commission, there was a review called the Royal Commission, and the Royal Commission effectively was like what we had in the UK, which was a retail distribution review. And globally, we have a problem whereby, quick story, I got in a cab in Miami when MDRT, the Million Dollar Round Table event, was in Miami. And I got in this cab, and this guy said to me, oh, so are you a CFP? And I said, I'm not a CFP. I said, I'm a speaker. I'm actually not a financial advisor. I'm a speaker. And he went, yeah. He said, I've done my insurance exams. He said, yeah. He said, I give financial advice. Now, this is a cabbie in Miami driving a yellow cab who is a part-time, effectively, product salesman, right? But he called himself a financial advisor. I mean, I just sat in the back and I just thought, I'm not even going to comment, because if I do, I'm not going to get out of this cab alive. Like, I'm not going in. I'm not going in because I'll never come out. Right?
Nothing good can come from that.
I'm keeping quiet, which for me is quite difficult. And so effectively, globally, we've got from the US, where effectively you can answer a 90-point multiple choice question to become a financial advisor, to varying levels, right up to, sitting years worth of exams to use the same title effectively, right? So what the Royal Commission said was, the level of academic technical qualifications and standards within the Australian marketplace is nowhere near high enough. We've got to raise the bar. So effectively, the regulator said, all you lot, financial advisors in Australia, you all need to have this level, a certain level of academic qualification, whether that be inside or outside of the industry. There's a bit of gap fill going on. Well, you've got guys who are like 55, 60, sat an exam 30 years ago. They built a book of clients who are getting paid commissions. Commissions were slashed. So overnight, they basically borrowed money to buy books of business and build these businesses. And overnight, the commissions were turned off. Well, that was the plan. Well, the problem with all that, if you'd have approached that as a business owner, you probably would have saw that coming, let's be honest.
Yep.
Also, you'd have put contingent plans in place for that. You wouldn't have gone on all commission. You'd have tried to go more fee for service, for example, because no business model is going to survive just based on pure commissions, right? None. And then compound that was the fact that these businesses were their life.
Yep.
That was their life. So what the regulator, I just don't think they thought through, was that you're literally ripping somebody's arms off, and then at the same time you just rip the heart out. You know, these relationships with clients are personal. This business, there's probably a business in there that the advisor has divorced wives over, not spend time with children because of client meetings, and they just did not plan for that. And it was the end of these guys, mainly men, sadly. They just jumped off Sydney Bridge. I mean, literally were killing themselves because they couldn't imagine a life without their clients, their business, so tragic. You know, when that news was given at that conference, you know, and there's literally people in the room crying. It's because they'd lost friends.
Yep. They'd
lost friends to this terrible, terrible thing, which was effectively an incentive to try and do good, but this kind of casualties. So yeah, I mean, and I've had stories of guys in the UK that have, I've got a client that he cancelled some work we were doing, standards, and I phoned him up and I said, what's going on? And he said, can I speak to you openly? And I said, absolutely. Like, what the hell's going on? He said, on May the 6th last year, he said, I planned to take my own life, right? And I was like, what? And I went, oh. I was like, why May? I was like, my first thing was, why May the 6th? Like, was this like a key milestone date or something? Or was he going to go out in style? He planned the whole thing, drowned himself in the bath, taking a drugs overdose, right? And I said, why May the 6th? He said, because on May the 5th, the suicide clause was lifted in my life insurance.
Oh.
Right? And this is a UK financial planner, top of his game, just had enough. Regulation, we've got reviews for DB transfers here in the UK. Too much, just too much. And, I was like, oh my God. I went, please, if you need anything at all, we're here to help you. So this is not just an Aussie thing. This is a big problem. This is a big, wider problem. The well-being of financial planners is generally on its backside, because they give every waking moment, and have done for decades, to change the lives of clients and make an impact. And their lives are pretty much, in the main, not everyone, but they're left in absolute tatters. So when you're asking me, what are the problems? Well, that's the biggest, because they're not putting their oxygen mask on before helping anybody else. I mean, there's nothing left of them to tackle a global change or a pandemic because they've just neglected themselves and everything that's in their lives personally. No free time. And I could go on, but there's lots of issues, but that's one of them.
And it's just beyond heartbreaking. And we absolutely wish we could bring every one of those people back, because this is such an incredible profession, and it is about helping people live their best life. And if you as an advisor can make sure you are putting that oxygen mask on first and live your best life, you can absolutely balance them. And we need those people. We need all those good people that have, dedicated their lives and want to do the best thing for clients. And, when you think about regulation, I don't personally see commissions going away in the US probably any time in my life, but it does still get to the point of, but we do still need to be prepared. And, like you said, looking at your actual business and making sure that it's not potentially any one revenue stream. And that, it's that business mindset, which is so different. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, and they're just not looking at it like that at all. They're just looking at it in the immediate, and what's happening now, and what am I getting paid now, and and they're living champagne lifestyles on immediate income that can be withdrawn at any point. And you only have to look round a room at a conference to see how many 55-year-old, 60-year-old, fat, middle-aged, unhealthy financial planners there are, and advisors, and it's all you need to see. There is a turn of those wanting more free time and be fitter and healthier, but it normally comes because they've hit an age and they've had a heart attack.
Yep.
And they need to go, oh my God, I need to look at my life. Really? Stop press. Surprise. So the work that we do is just part of a much bigger thing. It's not. It's about saving lives. God, it's just huge, but. It gets me out of bed every morning. So I suppose that's a good thing.
That's a great thing. So, you travel around the world, I travel around the world, tons of trends that we're seeing happening around the world, still tons of gaps around the world. Like you said, it's so diverse everywhere. We don't have consistency in just about anything. How can we bring the global community together on this journey forward?
Well, I think one of the things I've always, you look at something like the CFP, as a global, it is the global standard of financial planning, of the financial planning process, not how to run a financial planning practice, it's that financial planning process. So more of that kind of thing is wonderful. And that's why standards float my boat, because it's like the paraplanner standard, for example. So the paraplanner standard we designed as a committee, and we had international input, and it took about 8 months all in to design it. But now there is a global standard for a paraplanner with a definition of the role, definition of the expectations, and it's in a lovely printed bound booklet. And it's like sexy. Gosh, any paraplanner that wants to be a paraplanner, it's like must reading. It's not just about their exams and their qualifications. It's about how to do the job and what does that job mean. And, but now there's a benchmark for it. So I think any qualifications don't do this because they're so different in so many different countries, as we were talking about with the States and others. But a standard is a standard, an ISO standard, a sector standard like the paraplanner standard is applicable in the States, in South Africa, in Australia. It's one benchmark. And we've set a target by 2030 as a business to have a global footprint in 8 countries. And we've listed them. We know exactly where we're going because we know that they're the centres of influence globally that will then push down. And I've just submitted a presentation to speak in South Africa at this virtual conference about the paraplanner standard. So the gaps are, and the things that we're seeing are and one of my presentations, which I actually delivered luckily in Hawaii, which was an amazing experience. But, it was, the rise of the professional paraplanner, and the title is Unleash Your New Superpower, because, these firms have these roles in their business, but if they've never heard of the title paraplanner or the standard, they just call them administrators and client assistants. And when I was in Hawaii, there was this guy who was I found out he was from Mexico, and he was there with his brother, and he was literally staring at me the whole way through this presentation. Like his eyeballs were like transfixed on me, and I was like, oh my God, he hates me. Like I was feeling really like he was burning a hole into my forehead. And he came up to me, like charging through the audience after I finished. He's like, is this real? Is this role real? And I'm like, yeah, it's real. And he went, I've got 42 of them.
Wow.
He said, and they're currently called financial advisors, and they can't sell. Right? Well, this one document, which he then bought 42 copies of, one for each of them, basically transitioned his whole business. It transformed his whole business from having 42 pretty mediocre, crappy salesmen and women to actually 42 empowered paraplanners who knew what their job was and what their job wasn't. Game changer. Game changer.
Totally. Well, and it sounds like it's beyond the technical also, because that's one of the other challenges I'm seeing, right? If you think about what is a financial planner, it's like you need to be able to analyze, you need to be able to calculate. And the same thing with paraplanners, you need to be able to do the back office work, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah, 100%. When we wrote the paraplanner standard, I mean, I'll send you a copy so you can have a little look at it. But one of the things that's in it, the first thing that a paraplanner has to be able to demonstrate is passion. Passion.
Wow, fantastic.
Passion. The first word that's gone in is, if you were a paraplanner and I was assessing you, I would say, how do you feel about this profession? How do you feel about this role? And if I sense that you're going, well, I couldn't think of anything else to do, my dad said I should be a paraplanner, we'd be like, no way, that's not happening. But if you're like, oh my God, I love it, I just love the fact that I can get involved with clients, well, straight away, they're miles apart, those candidates. Those applicants are miles apart. One is super passionate about the job and the other's just like, well, I could go and stack shelves in Walmart.
Yeah.
So I think, passion, confidence, they have to be able to demonstrate confidence, objection handling, presentation skills. Even if they don't present to the client, they've still got to present their recommendations confidently to the planner or advisor who's then going to go and present them recommendations to the client. So all these skills that sit all around the edge, I just think they're way more than life skills, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you know about investments? Yeah, but you've got no confidence and you can't handle objection and you're just not very organised. But I'm a paraplanner, not in my book, right? So this is what the standards are trying to do is almost box off really what those roles are, and that's what standards do. Qualifications don't do that, but standards do. That's why I love them so much.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Michelle, this has been, speaking of passion, I mean, your passion that comes through. Thank you for the passion that you bring to the profession all over the world, to bringing us together, pushing us all forward. I'm still excited to see what is possible during our lifetime, because I think there's a lot of evolution to come, but you're right. Who knows what it's going to look like after we're gone many decades from now. So thank you so much. Any final words for listeners?
No, I just, I think if you're gonna be in financial services, and you're listening to this and, your heart's not in it, you've got to get out. Like this profession and this industry, I compare it to midwifery. It's like giving birth to children. You've got to love this industry, this profession, love what we stand for, love what we do, sometimes more than life itself, because it's a challenging profession to be in. So if you're half in, half out, get out. Like, you're going to do the industry and the profession no good. Like, if you're just in to make a quick dollar, please do us a favour and leave and leave the rest of us to it. And the only other thing I would say is, if you are a planner that's, given up so much and continues to give up too much free time with your families, all on a mission to change the lives of your clients, please don't neglect and reject the most important life of all, which is your own and your family and the people that love you and your children. And because at the end of the day, yes, we love this industry, love this profession, but it is just that, and none of it is ever more, no other family, no other life is more important than your own and that of your immediate family. So, don't ever neglect them, because it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. You are the most important person.
I totally agree. Beautiful words, Michelle. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Innovating Advice Show. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a thought or two. Link to my profile is right below. Stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to hearing from you.